In 3 months, the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade will have completed the formation of the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act regulations. The Eswatini Citizen Economic Empowerment Act seeks to achieve the empowerment of youth and disadvantaged groups to engage into entrepreneurial activities for employment creation and economic growth, also encourage joint venture and partnerships between domestic businesses and foreign-owned businesses on areas of mutual interest, and also encourage the integration of informal businesses into the SME sector through incentives for formalization. The Director of Small and Medium Enterprises, Mluleki Dlamini, says the council, which was recently announced by the Minister Mangoba Khumalo, wants to ensure that by the end of the year, businesses start reaping the benefits of the Act. He said this during an interview with our journalist Nelsiwe Ndlangamandla, which we'll watch later on the program. And in our leading story, some teachers have admitted that it is difficult to vet suppliers and follow procurement procedures since government does not pay on time, so they have to use the next best option. Let's get straight into our business news. For our first story, some teachers have admitted that it is difficult to vet suppliers and follow procurement procedures since government does not pay on time, so they have to use the best next option. The teachers were speaking during a training on procurement by the Eswatini Public Procurement Regulatory Agency at Esibayeni Lodge, Matapa.
Of times, principals have been brought before the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament for failing to follow procurement procedures. Principals say they are left with no choice at times but to flout procurement procedures as finances from government come in very late.
As schools, we buy even though there is no money and wait maybe for 6 to 7 months before we start paying the suppliers. So what happens then? You then go for a supplier that you know will not trouble you when you haven't paid. As I'm speaking to you, there are suppliers that we haven't paid since January. We're waiting for money to be available. Now, if a supplier is going to call you constantly, you stop buying from that one. And then you go for the big guns who are not going to go after you, but they will wait until the payment comes.
Sometimes the funds go dry, the resources go dry in the school. So you just need somebody who will just save the situation. And I've made an example of writing an exam while the funds are not there. So the dictates, in fact, the regulation stipulates that you secure 3 quotations and stuff. So by then, when you want to save the situation, as we know, currently the country may be facing those challenges. So you never go around trying to secure 3 quotations.
The Minister of Education says whatever the circumstances, principals still have a duty to vet businesses they work with.
We're encouraging business people to work with school, but we are saying let them be fair. They must register with the government so that whatever public fund they are using, there is transparency, because we are promoting transparency and accountability.
Thulile Sifunza, Manager Capacity Building and Advisory at the Eswatini Public Procurement Regulatory Agency, says the finance challenges faced by schools does not mean the law does not have to be followed.
Their concerns are valid. It did come up in the discussions to say, you know what, we appreciate the information that you are sharing with us, but the space in which you operate in, some of these elements will be difficult to practice. But now we are talking about there's that exchange of money that happens between the school institution as well as the supplier. Now, this is to avoid situations where you'll find that now a school engages a supplier that is not credible, because if the supplier is not vetted, there is no way to determine if it is a credible supplier. They will provide you with the supplies that you or the things that you need from that supplier.
Government has always maintained that all is being done to pay schools on time. For Market View, Nelsiwe Ndlangamandla, Vominkosi Nzinisa, Matapa.
It's 5 minutes after 2, and that's it for our business news. Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll return with Nelsiv's interview.
Be sure to catch Business Watch every Wednesday between 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., where we feature the latest updates on business news, market trends, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders, as well as insights on emerging small and medium enterprises in the commercial sector. Business Watch, your business leader.
Eswatini TV will be at the International Trade Fair 2024, bringing you exciting opportunities to connect with a wider audience and boost your brand visibility. ESTVA is offering incredible specials that include 5-minute on-location interviews, engaging viewers directly, spot advertisements, 30 seconds congratulatory messages, and much more. Do not miss out on this chance to increase brand awareness, generate lead and sales. Our details are displayed on the screen.
Welcome back. You're still watching Market View. This is the Tuesday edition. My name is Lungile Makakula. Thank you for staying with us. In 3 months, the Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade will have completed the formation of the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act regulations. The Director of Small and Medium Enterprises, Mluleki Dlamini, says the council, which was recently announced by the Minister, Honorable Mangoba Kumalo, wants to ensure by the end of the year that businesses start reaping the benefits of the act. Business journalist Nelson Ndlangamandla had a sit-down interview with the director on how SMEs will benefit from the act.
Welcome, Director. It's been 2 weeks since the Minister launched the Citizens Economic Empowerment Council. What is the next step now for the Council?
Thank you very much, Ndlangamandla. We are now in the process of developing regulations that will ensure that we implement the provisions of the Act. You will recall that there are quite a number of issues that are in the Act, or I would say areas that the Council will be working on. One of those critical areas is the issue of preferential procurement and issues of investment, whether foreign or domestic investment, and also general issues which speaks to issues of regional development and also supportive culture. So basically the regulations will be spanning across all of these areas in terms of what are the sort of the issues that we see as bottlenecks that hinders the benefit in terms of local businesses in the economy. So the regulations as will be developed will just appeal to all stakeholders, particularly the business community, to come on board to contribute effectively into the development of these regulations, because they are the anchor of the implementation of this act. So basically all of these contributions are the ones that will shape the documents and also areas of interventions, and will then be implemented by the Council in terms of compliance. Take, for instance, if we can say other sectors are reserved for local businesses, the Council will make sure that if in the regulations that has been highlighted, it will make sure that businesses or entities comply with that provision. So basically, if we are saying that a certain area or economic area in the economy is reserved for local businesses, we need to make sure that that happens. Also continuing from that, if we are saying that in terms of investment, certain businesses will then have to be in joint venture with their foreign businesses as they continue exploiting that particular economic sector. So that basically would be the way in which the Council will be functioning. So it is very critical now, because when you look at the Act, it does stipulate that these are the provisions that needs to be implemented to better understand and also make sure that local businesses benefit out of this act, because we are saying it is a citizen economic empowerment act, so it is focusing mainly on local businesses in terms of their benefit.
We have been in constant engagement with Small and Medium Enterprises Director on this show, and we have seen the hunger and the eagerness for them to contribute to the country's economy. When can we expect this process of forming the regulations to start?
We are anticipating that we should be starting this process in the next month, which basically would be once we finalize all the terms of reference of the consultant and also the time frame, because we are not anticipating to take a longer period to conclude this work. So we're looking at in the next 2-3 months we should be able to have the regulations ready, because the council will be the one that will be spearheading this process.
Small and medium enterprises and startups play a crucial part in economic development, Director. Will they also be given a chance to have an input on these regulations? Yes.
Yeah, so basically in terms of the participation of businesses in this consultative process, we will then be convening various meetings, stakeholder meetings, which basically will be scoping. So all businesses will participate in this process. There are no particular businesses that are targeted, but we are saying that all businesses with potential of benefiting out of this act will be invited to come through, make their inputs, then from there the consolidation will be done by the consultant that is currently being commissioned to do this work. Also, we are looking at a regional benchmark exercise that will be done with the consultant as well, to ensure that we do not in a way try to invent something that is already existing in other countries. So we'll be looking at what is the regional practice, so that we also align ourselves in terms of regional practices. The invitations will be coming through once we have set out the schedule for the consultation, then we'll start the process.
The Citizens Economic Empowerment Act is at the heart of the Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade. At every event, we see the Minister advocating for this act. When can we expect this act to start working?
It's a game changer for all of us. So we believe that it will indeed make an impact in terms of local businesses benefiting in the economy of Eswatini. So basically, our aim is to have everything in place before the end of this year, and we should be able, because once the regulations are in place, we should be able to then start looking at issues of compliance with the regulations, then after that, seeing the benefits coming through.
Maybe you can go back and highlight to us, for someone who's just seeing this conversation on the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act for the first time, what is it that this act contains that will be beneficial, especially for small and medium enterprises, Director?
Indeed, the benefits, when we look at issues of procurement, we want to see in terms of the nature of procurement that is happening in the economy and who are participating in those procurement activities, so that we can now reserve a certain allocation for local businesses. Also in other areas where we've got capacity by local businesses, we will be saying that let them have a share in terms of their benefit. So it will just be a consultative process that will culminate into businesses now having a share in terms of maybe a procurement allocation countrywide. And also when you look at investment, do we have local businesses investing in certain areas of the economy? If there are issues, what are those issues? Then we address them. Then from there we'll be seeing local businesses participating fully into the local economy in terms of investment. And as I highlighted, in terms of regional development, we want to see why are businesses not establishing in other areas and being concentrated in urban areas. So we'll then see if there are incentives that can be provided for businesses to also establish in areas that are remote, and in that way benefit those local communities. And also the issue of a supportive culture. We want to look at, as you mentioned, issues of startup. What are the issues that are affecting startup in terms of even their growth? Then from there, put those mitigation measures in place.
The Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade Director has been busy at work moving away from the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act. You are also reviewing the investment policy of the country. How is the investment policy going to help shape up the economic landscape, especially for local businesses?
On the issue of the Investment Act that is currently being reviewed, we're looking at having that process benefiting also local businesses from startup and to small, and gradually increasing into medium enterprises that will be able to now exploit markets that are outside the country, because we cannot focus inward only. We really need to look at external markets for businesses to grow. And also the issue of getting those products they produce into the local markets, because we've seen that the majority of our businesses do import their products. So we just want to first start by encouraging some manufacturing that needs to happen internally, so that they are able to also produce products that can be traded in the market and eventually be exported, because their growth potential lies in that area.
How will you ensure that we have enough businesses that will invest locally, as you are saying that in these two documents that there are some sectors that are going to be reserved for locals? Singadikhanzi phela director ukhanze ukuthi sekunebantfu labafisile lababuya ngaphandle labafise uku-investa khona la ngekhathi eveni kepha thina sesithi hayi thina lokhu sikubekele sive semaswati.
Yeah, in terms of the reservation of sectors, we will indeed consult extensively on that, look at the capacity locally and match it into that reservation, because we cannot fully close out that sector. But what we'll do, look at what magnitude can we then allocate for local businesses, not to completely say there will be no foreign participants in that sector, but we are saying a certain portion of that sector needs to benefit local businesses.
Thank you so much, Director, for taking your time to talk to us today. We know that government has said small and medium enterprises are the engine to economic growth, and we are hoping that the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act, as well as the investment policy, will level the field for small and medium enterprises.
That was Nelson Ndangamandla having an interview with Meluleki Dlamini, Director SMEs at the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, who said in 3 months the ministry will have completed the formation of the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act regulations. We'll go for an ad break. We connect with Senator Spear after the break.
Hi, I'm Alex. Let's talk about banks, specifically central banks. Believe it or not, they're really important to our everyday lives. Central banks manage the flow of money in a country's economy, so things don't go haywire. They're typically part of the government, although they should operate independently. The specific roles of central banks vary from country to country, but they usually have a few key responsibilities. Mainly, they're in charge of monetary policy to keep prices stable. One way they do this is through what's called the interest rate, which is the cost of borrowing money. Central banks lower interest rates, making credit cheap to boost the economy. Because when credit to buy things, such as homes, food, and cars gets cheaper, people tend to buy more. And who doesn't love that? But when prices get too high, central banks can raise rates, making money more expensive to borrow. This can slow growth, but it also brings down prices. Central banks also buy and sell foreign currency. They can do this to weaken or support the value of their own currency. Stability isn't just about keeping prices steady. That's why central banks also play a key role in preserving financial stability. For example, if a commercial bank is in trouble, a central bank can give them a loan, but only as a last resort. Central banks have been using all of these tools to help keep things stable for hundreds of years. Okay, so why am I telling you this? Well, whether you're buying bread, or a pomegranate, or even starting a business, that stability is important for all of us. And here at the IMF, a big part of our job is providing policy advice that can help central banks all over the world meet their price and financial stability goals.
Right, welcome back. You're still watching Market View, the Tuesday edition. Thank you for staying with us. We want to connect with Sanele Sbia, our in-house economist, to get today's financial markets. Good afternoon, Mr. Sbia. Thank you for joining us today. Let's start perhaps with international markets. What is happening in international markets? We see that elevated levels of inflation in the US in Europe has forced companies to cut jobs. In the international markets.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Good afternoon to the viewer. So what we are seeing, happening in the euro market, especially, is that story of job cuts across the region, across the eurozone, where companies are really just struggling to maintain and really to deal with the high cost of living pressures that have actually dampened demand a bit, and that's what we are seeing happening in the euro region. But we will get back to that shortly. Maybe if we start with the US markets. What we are seeing in the US markets is we are seeing the Dow Jones Industrial Average still maintaining some positive momentum, but when you look into the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, that momentum seems to have been lost. Just somehow in the red. But what we are noticing of importance is the fact that it was very all-time highs. But what's driving that, Lou, is the fact that we are of the jobs figures and inflation data in the US, but what we are seeing also happening again is also the the risk of a recession has somehow been revised upwards to 0.25 or 25%. Those are the odds of the US economy going into a recession, and that actually plays into the issue of the poor job numbers. And we're hoping that it's not going to be too late to start cutting the interest rates next week, and then if eventually that effect is going to start being felt in the economy, and the economy might rebound. Further, what we are seeing in the US market, Lou, is the fact that we are expecting NVIDIA to actually come up and really post results tomorrow. So the markets are a bit worried and a bit concerned of whether NVIDIA is going to post the results that the markets are actually looking forward to. And we're also seeing tech stocks really not performing very well on the build up to that, because it's going to be one of those landmark moments or those landmark results that is going to show whether the stocks are really to bet for in terms of the tech and the AI drive. So that's what we are seeing happening in the greater Euro region, in the greater USA. And then when we move into the European markets, what we are seeing there is, yes, markets are relatively mute. There's really not much major changes, but still not showing signs of some positive growth and some positive territory there. That's purely because, with monetary policy, you do expect it to start affecting the economy, but it is not as instant. When you cut the interest rate today, people are going to take time to try and adjust to that new interest rate cut and, try to improve their expenditures over a short to medium term. And we've also seen the European Central Bank coming into play and, stating that in as much as they are trying to keep inflation under control, there still is some excessive government spending, which makes it difficult to control market. But what we are noticing is, London is still at 8.3, which is still quite positive. Germany is actually moving closer to 18,700, something we've not seen in a long time. And then we are still seeing France, the CAC is still staying there at around 7,500 region. And then when we move into into the Asian markets, you can see that markets were relatively mute as well, with just marginal changes, and we're still struggling to get back to the 40,000 mark that we got to earlier on in the year in Japan. Japan's still staying at around 38,000, and mainland China is staying around 2,800 in terms of volumes, with Hong Kong staying at around 17,000. So the major factors that to look out for, Lulu, is the fact that we are waiting to see how much of the interest rate cut is going to come through from the US, while at the same time we are seeing some major stock buybacks within China. That's why we're seeing the Shanghai Composite Index, they're not performing really well. And then you couple that with the growth dynamics within the Chinese economy. That's why we're seeing the Shanghai Composite Index really just failing and not moving towards the 3,000 mark, which we saw like a couple of months ago in the year. And then, coming to Japan, you can see that markets are still trying to find their footing after moving from interest-free money to now a harder type of stance in terms of that monetary policy, when we've seen that Japan has actually moved from a negative interest rate territory to now a positive interest rate territory. And that's what markets are started trying to strive and, trying to push and see if markets can actually maintain the fundamentals and be able to sustain growth, even when we've moved and shifted to that type of positive territory. And then moving into South Africa, we're seeing that the South African stock exchange really is also edging down a bit, because the markets are waiting to see what's going to happen in terms of the data that's coming out of the US tomorrow. In as much as markets are bracing themselves for a cut in the interest rate, but it's also an issue of now, are we not a little too late to come to the party? Because if the economy is showing signs of tanking, is the September rate cut going to be the right moment? And how much of a cut is needed to ensure that we really push the odds of a recession really very closer to zero? Because that's now is what is going to worry markets as they prepare for a softer type of lending environment, and seeing how consumers and producers alike are going to be pushing their portfolios. And what we are seeing in South Africa is, yes, South Africa is also bracing for an interest rate cut in September. Over and above, we've seen that inflation is also playing out well within South Africa, but we know that South Africa has really just escaped quite a number of technical recessions in the past 3 quarters, and with just marginal growth of 0.1. So everyone is watching to see if that recession story is not going to become a global story overall. And then we've also seen the tensions in the Middle East also just spiraling out of proportion and out of control. But we do hope that we are going to be able to contain those tensions, Lulu. So speaking of those tensions, if you move into the price of Brent crude oil, you will see that the price of Brent crude oil is now back at that 80 mark. And that's most likely and majorly due to the fact that the Middle East is actually within some type of boiling point, and it seems there's just no end in sight. Nobody seems to be able to want to diffuse to diffuse the tension within the Middle East, mostly between Gaza, Israel, and now Iran. And then we do know that there is something happening with Hezbollah right in the region of Lebanon. So we're hoping that those tensions would be contained, Lulu. And if you look into those tensions, and with the cutting of the interest rates next month, demand might be going up while we have those tensions, which might affect the supply within the Middle East and the overall oil region. So we might actually see that price go up a bit if we are not really, if those tensions are not put to rest. The price of gold, as we've been saying, that eventually as we edge closer to to September, we should expect and we should start seeing the price of gold coming down a bit, because, companies and, investors are going to be going into the markets to find new stocks that are going to be benefiting from a softer money environment. So that's most likely going to be the retailers and the wholesalers. So we should expect the S&P 500 to start gaining, taking away some of those gains from gold, and actually putting them into those retailers and those wholesalers, both there in the FTSE and the FTSE 500. So we should start seeing that portfolio realignment, Ludo. And then when we come into our currencies, looking at the currency, we can see that the domestic currency is relatively weaker today because, the US economy is bracing for the news tomorrow, and the news of that recession have somehow slowed down economic activity. So the is actually relatively weaker at 17 emalangeni 76 cents, the euro at 19 emalangeni 83 cents, and relatively stronger against the Japanese yen at 8 emalangeni 16 cents. So that's purely because there is the fears of a recession, that upgrading even by that 5 percentage points from the 20 to 25%, that actually still sends shivers while the markets are waiting for the data to come up tomorrow to confirm or not to confirm that we are really just heading for that recession. So we do hope that when the data comes out tomorrow, markets will start seeing a shift in a different direction. And I thank you, Lulu. So in the local stock exchange, we did not find any changes in terms of the trades over the past month or so. Thank you, Lulu.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sanele, for that analysis on today's financial markets. And that's it for our program. Today, we have come to the end of our Tuesday edition of Market View. We'll see you again tomorrow for Nedbank Business Watch at exactly 2 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your day.